Sometimes you have to get rid of something to move forward. In my case, it was a mask. My stick, my secret sauce, the only reason to watch my videos. It became a part of our identity. Ours? Yeah, Mr. Scammers in the blue mask, Mr. Scammers without the mask. The key element is Scammers, my alter ego. Tyler Durden to my narrator, Slim to my shady after all. But here is the question, who am I without the mask? To be honest, a tell me about yourself type of question always stumps people. We always want to present ourselves in the best light, but at the same time there is no need to brag. Well, I will try. I am not originally from America, but I live in the United States. I enjoy filmmaking and traveling across the country. I look after myself, but unlike Patrick Bateman, I don't beat up homeless people. I need them for my videos. I don't have any bad habits that give me a quick dopamine fix. I don't drink coffee because it doesn't give me much of a boost. Alcohol makes me sleepy. And disposable cigarettes, well, I don't smoke them just because I'm not gay. And it would seem like everything is fine, except I have one problem: burnout. It's when you've objectively got nothing to complain about, but at the same time life somehow lost its flavor. Do you remember the smell of DVDs from your childhood? One whiff and you knew that the next few hours are about to be fantastic. Well, it smells different now. Every time when you wash your hands, there is a small rainbow on every single bubble on the foam. But our brain stops noticing these rainbows sometime before entering the first grade. That's just the way it is with everything. Things that used to bring us joy over time become tedious. That's why we got hooked on stimulants of every kind, from your morning coffee to the harder stuff. But 99% of people consume it the wrong way. They don't take tolerance into account. But here is the solution. Simply decrease the serving of caffeine. That way one serving of cappuccino could have lasted me the entire day. There is a bunch of proof that even one big sip of coffee could perk you up. The recipe is simple. Brew one Americano in the morning, pour it into the bottle with ice and add your favorite syrup for taste. Then take a sip every 2 hours and enjoy the effects. Think of it as addiction minus the social stigma. If you always got coffee in hand, you're not hooked, you're just all about that hustle. But as I already said, my problem was not with Uyghur. I needed to find inspiration and get back a taste for life. But also to beat my self-diagnosed ADHD and regain my focus. Damn, even music doesn't hit the same as it did during the first 1,000 times I had it on repeat. And movies.
Han peger faktisk på, at når man har den der sådan lidt halve promille i blodet,
Ja.
så er det jo der, hvor du sådan bliver sådan lidt mere afslappet og sådan lidt mere parat og musikalsk.
Well, movies sometimes can give you a good idea. So I started Googling. Research is good, but I'm more into hands-on experience. Turns out there is already this neat concept known as the Balmer Peak. Steve Ballmer is the former CEO of Microsoft, allegedly believed that a bit of boost in the bloodstream was necessary for any decent programmer to code efficiently. And here he is, hitting his productivity peak.
Developers! Yes!
We will never know if there was a cocaine low after the alcohol high, but Microsoft shares definitely took a nosedive while he was in charge, and Balmer himself was named the worst corporate leader in the US. Overall, studies say that small amounts of alcohol might indeed boost your productivity, but the trick is to keep that level steady. This means you can't just take one drink, you have to be sipping all day long. That will eventually lead you to become an alcoholic, just like the characters in the movie. And now tell me, what would you do if one day, out of the blue, you got an email from a group of scientists inviting you to participate in a sketchy experiment? You'd probably wonder who even checks their email these days. But you can hardly ignore the spam word in your email inbox when you only use it for two-factor authentication. Microdosing with psychedelics. It's all over the place right now. Fly-agaric and supplements flooded the marketplace, articles, podcasts, and so on. They all promise to unlock your potential and add a new dimension to your personality, but you don't necessarily need drugs to do that. For instance, you could learn how to drive a car or study a new language. You remain yourself, but now you can cruise around at night with your favorite playlist and watch movies without subtitles. I wanted to gain a new sense, like adding an extra extendable section to a telescope, but becoming a junkie was not part of the plan. Thus, my inner scales couldn't find balance. On the one hand, it's true that psychedelics could enhance your creativity and empathy. Also, the effects can last for a whole week after taking them. So probably microdosing can lead to the same effects, right? As you know, any new drug has to undergo a full cycle of testing, and pharmaceutical companies sometimes conduct experiments where they need participants. That's exactly the kind of Hogwarts letter that was sitting in my inbox. I was invited to participate in a clinical trial, to become a lab rat for a study on psychedelics. All I had to do was take one capsule each day and report my feelings. They were pretty upfront about what's inside. Each pill contained a small dose of various hallucinogens, LSD, psilocybin and fly-agarics. There would be no trips, because, well, it's microdosing, there won't be enough of an active substance for that. But in theory, it should be enough to change my brain, and therefore my life. Of course, I went back to Google and read up everything there is to know about microdosing of psychedelics. In a nutshell, here is what I understood. Your brain is like a strict old lady who saves electricity because she's worried about the bill, so unplug your fucking computer right away. And electricity represents your dopamine and serotonin, the stuff that is basically responsible for your mood. And any psychoactive substance, whether it's coffee or psilocybin, basically tells that old lady to fuck off. And it turns out that she stashed away a fortune for her funeral, but she would rather hand it over to scammers than share it with you. Psilocybin, on the other hand, won't be stingy and gives you everything right away. This explains all the effects, like visual and sensory distortions, basically a trip. But that's caused by a standard dose, while I was offered microdoses. Sounds tempting, but unfortunately when it comes to testing these things on myself, I need to be super cautious. I came across research suggesting that microdosing of psilocybin boosts productivity, reduces ADHD symptoms, and could potentially elevate your overall life experience. I remember a while back I came across an interesting author and his book Food of the Gods. There he came up with a rather unorthodox theory about a stoned monkey, saying that our ancestors ate psilocybin mushrooms and gained consciousness because of it. Not that he did it on purpose, no, he just roamed around and ate whatever he could chew. And those little mushrooms triggered rapid evolution, which resulted in the development of language, reflective thinking, self-awareness and so forth. No proof is essential, you should just trust me, McKenna said. And some people did. Inspired by the idea of turning into venom, the guy decided to inject psilocybin intravenously. Literally, he let a mushroom concoction flow through his bloodstream. Ultimately, he didn't become a superhero, and the mushrooms just kept reproducing in his bloodstream, which, as you can imagine, didn't lead to anything good. The guy went into shock and suffered organ failure. Even though McKenna didn't suggest injecting mushrooms, he did recommend taking heroic doses of psilocybin. Don't mix them up with heroin doses. How much is that? Well, to give you an idea, a microdose of psilocybin is 30 milligrams, which is often split in two separate doses. At that point, I squinted and googled how many deaths were caused by psilocybin. It turned out there was only one documented case, and it was an elephant. And it wasn't even due to psilocybin. The poor creature was injected with a heroic 297 milligrams of LSD, which is 3,000 times more than contains one blotter. As you can probably guess, I didn't want to end up like that elephant. Signing up for a shady experiment that could cost me also my sanity is not the way to go. So I deleted the email and decided to handle things on my own. The persistent feeling that life was passing me by only got stronger. I figured that traveling could fix it, so I explored dozens of cities. It became an expensive new source of emotions, but with each new destination, those feelings began to fade. I developed a tolerance. I literally have everything I need to enjoy life, but for some reason I just don't. Have you ever heard of this Bader-Meinhof phenomena? It's when you discover something new, you start noticing it everywhere. Exactly the same. I felt like everyone around me was taking something to make their lives easier. That email wouldn't leave my mind. In California, weed is legalized, and I realized I could always seek his counsel. Who the hell even reads the license agreement? Especially when the software is pirated, like with these sketchy scientists. But they are offering free drugs. What else is there to consider? I marked the checkboxes and watched Rick and Morty all night long. The very next day, a package of 60 pills was waiting for me in the mailbox. These studies basically all work like this. All participants are divided into two groups. One group gets a placebo and the other gets the real thing, in my case psychedelics. The placebo is just regular starch or sugar, something that won't affect you. Unless of course you have diabetes, but I don't. Although it's kinda ironic that someone chasing a trip could end up in a diabetic coma instead. Obviously, no one in either group knows for sure what's in their pill, otherwise the experiment would be biased. But no matter what, each person believes they have the real substance. So logically, my odds of getting hallucinogens are 50-50. I popped the pill and nothing happened. Not after an hour, not after two, not even after a day. An entire week went by like that. I even got a little anxious, wondering if I had received the placebo. I was demoralized, but luckily I came up with the idea to open a capsule and taste it. It wasn't sweet, but indeed it had a hint of mushrooms. This lifted my spirit. Plus, after all, microdosing effects often don't show up immediately. So I didn't stop the course, but decided to increase the dose. Instead of one pill, I took a few at once. And it worked. I felt invincible again. No, I wasn't going to put the mask back on. It had always been a part of me. Now I could turn to blue-faced dude whenever I needed to. And I need him now more than ever, because he knows all about drugs. Microdosing is still better than going without a dose at all, but why limit yourself? Especially when you already have the pills. And the best part, you can microdose just about anything, even LSD. And no, you don't need to cut the blotter into pieces, because the substance is not distributed evenly. A dropper, a measuring cup, and distilled water. These are our best buddies. 20 milliliters back and forth, and we simply put the blotter into the liquid. Now we just need to be patient and quickly wait for tomorrow morning. You can even switch someone's water bottle at the gym or just treat someone on the street. No need to thank me. And then I became sober. The blue-faced dude may sometimes go overboard, but he was right. Only with a bigger dose did I start to really feel alive. And finally my daily reports to the lab have changed. Instead of the usual, I didn't notice any changes, I was able to describe in detail what I felt. I got to do things I never had time for. Reading, cleaning, I even washed my car. My sense of time shifted as if an extra 10 hours were added to each day. Like seeing a rainbow in a soap bubble, I began to notice things I never saw before. Even a simple spider web amazed me. Did you know that drugs were initially tested not on humans or even rats, but on spiders? Under the influence, they wove their webs with mistakes. This helped scientists to understand that the more chaotic the web, the higher the level of intoxication. But my favorite has to be the sunsets. I feel like in Los Angeles they are different, kinda special. I fell asleep with a smile and began waking up much earlier. Everything was going well. Until I decided to increase the dosage even more. The blue-faced guy convinced me again. I had heard what a trip from hallucinogens is like and was prepared in case it happened. But almost nothing changed. I was still productive, working on a new video at home, listening to music, but suddenly the letters on the screen started trailing. I couldn't figure out why, since my screen has a frequency of 144 and that shouldn't be happening. When I reached to adjust the cable, I saw the patterns on the wall begin to melt. I realized I was about to trip. There is absolutely no way that the swaying fibers on the carpet would ever let me focus on work. This went on all evening, and when I finally opened my eyes after a sleepless night, I realized I'm still tripping. The light was hitting me hard, so I got rid of it. I was able to feel my blood vessels constricting. Because of that, my hands and feet became cold as if I had ice in my socks. My heart was racing so fast that I could distinctly hear its beating in my ears. The anxiety and quick breathing led to hyperventilation. At one point, I felt like I couldn't breathe. I rushed to the window, but got distracted by the mirror and felt another rush of fear when I saw my pupils. They were still dilated. That explained why everything around me looked so blurry. I wished I had read that ridiculous license agreement. I began googling those 4 letters that were unknown to me until now. Dissociation, sensory perception. Consciousness remains altered even long after the trip. 50% of those affected recover over the course of 5 years. In other words, I could recover in a week, or it could take a whole year. The frightening question, when will this end, which a clueless trip-sitter might answer with, "Oh, never," takes on a dark significance. Looks like I ended up with a kaleidoscope attachment for my telescope. The good news was that apparently my higher dosage didn't make much of a difference. HPPD also occurred in those who were microdosing responsibly. It didn't matter if they took psilocybin mushrooms or fly agarix with muscimol. You can never tell how much active substance is in a mushroom. You can't even tell how evenly the bladder is infused, and whether it's real LSD or some cheap Chinese NBO. Yeah, Steve Jobs was an LSD enthusiast and even refused to hire people who hadn't tried it. People like him created the vibe around the psychedelics as magical pill, but things could have gone another way. He could have been running around the office chasing invisible flies, or yelling that his turtleneck was trying to choke him. And how many cases like that have occurred? And how many promising geniuses are now bending over for another shot in the loony bin? We'll never know. The next week I felt completely off. Bro, are you sure that's not just your wild imagination? There is this thing called the nocebo effect. It's like a placebo, but the flip side. There was this experiment where participants got a pill, were told it was LSD, and were told what effects to expect. Then they were taken into special rooms. Movies were played on a projector and some ambient music in the background. The whole time there were a few folks acting like they were also first-timers here, but they were actually the ones running the experiment. They faked tripping and went up to folks saying things like, "Dude, your pupils are wild." As a result, more than half of the participants reported feelings like they were tripping and experiencing hallucinations. As you might have figured, they didn't actually get any LSD. So if you don't want to end up with a heart attack, just chill out and let it go. One day the hallucinations just vanished as suddenly as they showed up, and I couldn't tell for sure if they were really gone or I just learned how to live with them. My insanity was just a preview, but from now on I decided to listen to myself, not some blue-faced dude. Besides, the experiment was coming to an end. Today marks the end of it all. There is just one pill left. Another unforgettable sunset, but inside of me there was already anxiety. Some part of me worried that at the end of the experiment, as soon as the pills ran out, life would instantly lose its colors. Just like they sent me the pills on day 1, today I found 2 letters in my mailbox. I opened the envelope and started to read the first one. It said that the study was over, and if I wanted to know what dosage and substance I was on, I needed to open the second envelope. My heart was racing. Inside was the recipe for that very NZT that took me to a whole new level. If I learn what it is, I'll be able to get those substances on my own, which means I'd have unlimited access to microdosing. I'll be able to create content that I never made before, and maybe even step beyond YouTube and came up with something entirely new. I ripped open the envelope. But on the other hand, I already achieved what I wanted. Do I really need this boost? Will my life depend on some drug capsule? And I also knew that the blue-faced dude was now with me forever. After that first hit of weed and the first pill of psychedelics, he became a part of me. Plus, that last bad trip kinda freaked me out. And you know what? I decided I don't need the NZT prescription. I have already found everything I was looking for, and even some things I would prefer not to know. Now my life is completely in my control.
Dear Mr.Scammers, I would like to inform you that you're in the control group that received a placebo. Your capsules were without any active substance. Thanks for being a part of the experiment. Kind regards.